All right, let's talk about Little Oak. What led you to become an agent and then owner?
Well, to become an agent, um, I had the fortunate path in my life of knowing a guy by the name of Ray Ankenna, who's, been a fixture in the BC real estate community for a long time. Without getting into all the finer details, I, had gotten married in the early 2000s, needed to find a career, and Ray was a guy that I admired for many years before that. And so as I came to the conclusion that I needed to find a way to make money and have a career, real estate seemed natural. And Ray was an incredible teacher to me, even before I got into real estate, someone I admired and looked up to, some might say a mentor. And so that's what led me into my, real estate journey. And then once I got inside, I ended up encountering all kinds of other people who helped me along the way. But my journey into real estate was because I knew this guy named Ray who had a great career and I wanted to be like him. Well, the ownership piece was something that came much, much later. I started this in 2003 and then, struggled as many young agents do in the early years, trying to, find my way and figure out how to forge a successful career through various ups and downs in the marketplace. And then having come through the financial crisis of 0809, which was very, very difficult, coming out of that, I felt like that was the moment that I started to really, be something in real estate. I wasn't just a young kid trying to convince people to work with me. I now had experience and history and some confidence. And I started to formulate my own views and opinions and feelings about how a successful real estate career should look in our marketplace. So that kind of took place over, 2010 to 15. And then it was in those years that actually Ray, who owned the brokerage at the time, started coming to me for help with training new agents and existing agents on just various aspects of the business. And that gave me a taste of what leadership would feel like from a brokerage level. And then as things progressed and I started to do more and more of that, and then, Ray and I ended up in conversations through 2015 and 16 and 17 about the future. And that led to me getting involved in ownership sometime around the end of 2018. And so since that time, I've been, I wear two hats. I own Little Oak and I oversee, everything from a big picture perspective, but I still run my sales career. And I feel like both make me better at either. There's arguments, a person might say, well, if you do one, it takes away from the other. And, at certain scale and size, that could be true. But at least for now, in the place that I'm in and the company is in, keeping my legs in the game and having a first basis understanding of what's going on in a day-to-day, in the day-to-day challenges of the market, I really believe that makes me a better owner. And then, being in the ownership chair, I think makes me better agent too.
Was there something that you were seeing in the industry at the time that you wanted to do different?
I would say that that's evolved over time. I think when I got into ownership specifically, I was in a place in my career where, because I started so young, what was I, 22 years of age when I got into real estate, what I couldn't see doing was just doing that, in perpetuity, for the next 50 years or something. So I needed a new challenge. I enjoy leadership and I enjoy seeing my fingerprint on the success of others. That's something that's very rewarding to me. And so that's what got me in. And then as I got in, things evolve. And then once you're on the other side of the desk, you maybe see a different perspective of how the industry works. And then I probably started to formulate more opinions of what I thought the future would look like and what I thought the best path for Little Oak was. And, how I would want, my vision of what I think a brokerage should look like for the future. So I would say that stuff, I didn't necessarily have that early on. It was more just a desire for growth and challenge. But then, a short time thereafter, once you sit on the other side of the desk and see things from a different perspective, you quickly start to formulate what you think is best for the future of the industry and then ultimately the growth of the company.
Having had time on both sides now, what would you say is the mission of Little Oak?
Well, defined very briefly in a statement, it would be to help agents sell more homes. I mean, that's what we do on the most basic level. And what I see in terms of like the landscape of the industry is very strange. You know, when you look at the volume of transactions that happens in a marketplace, even in a hot environment, like even if you go to, you know, the 21s and 22s years, just on a pure math basis, we have way too many agents given the amount of transactions there are in the marketplace. And, you know, that's the industry. That's fine. That's the way it's regulated. You know, we're not capped at the number of agents that we can have. But a byproduct of that is even in a hot market, a lot of agents don't sell very many homes, which means a lot of agents don't make very much money, which leads to other challenges within the industry. You know, we get agents who are not very engaged and maybe working other part-time jobs. And what we experience, at least the agents that we encounter and what we want to cultivate in our brokerages, is we want this to not only be a full-time job for people, but we want them to experience whatever level of financial success they want to achieve. And by and large, we hear that most people aren't attaining what they want to attain. They want more. So our job in the marketplace is to meet people where they're at, help them find a way to transact more, which can lead to their financial goals.
What do you think most agents are lacking from leadership?
I would say from a leadership perspective, what they're lacking is they're not surrounded by leaders who have even walked the path that they're trying to walk. Not just our industry, our world is full of people that, you know, have ideas, but have never done it. Or maybe they did it, but they did it in 1995. They haven't done it in 2025.
Yeah.
So that's the first obstacle. There's so much noise, right? Like there's just noise, you know, amplified by just the presence of social media and the fact that everyone can have a voice and everyone can appear like a professional. And you know, really one of the first things that we should be asking anybody is like, quite literally, like, you know, if you want to get really specific and rude, you could say, well, show me your net worth statement, or show me your, you know, what you've done. Show me, you know, you're professed to be someone who can do all these things. Well, what have you bought and sold? How are you growing your wealth? How have you grown your business? What's your business plan? What are your strategies? And what you'll find a lot of in our industry is regurgitated information that we can all read in books and find on videos and in coaching conferences, but not necessarily the life experience of the practical application of it. And that's probably just true of the world, right? So what was the first part of the question?
Just what do you think agents are lacking?
So they're lacking leadership around them that actually has and can continue to do it so that they're capable of showing them how to do it. And then the other thing I would say they're lacking has maybe nothing to do with the leadership at all. Self-belief and doubt and fear and, you know, all of the demons that we battle every day that might have nothing to do with real estate, you know, personal dilemmas, family trials and tribulations, disease, like all of these things impact us here. And if we're not right here, then we can literally be standing in front of the greatest teacher of all time and unable to hear the message because we're having dishonest conversations with ourselves here. You know, sales is hard. Anybody who's done sales, any type of sales for a long time will tell you it's hard. And it's hard because what we have to deal with is rejection, right? Someone telling you, you're not our first choice. You're not good enough. I want to work with this person. And if you encounter rejection and then combine that with the demons inside, maybe you're already beating yourself up or you're already low somewhere else, or, you know, you're struggling with some personal goal. It could be as simple as like weight loss or weight gain, or someone in your life is beating you up in your family, you know, whether it be physically or verbally or anything. All of these things are hard on their own. And then you combine that in an arena where somebody says, you're not good enough. You're not our choice. We want to work with this person. Like, holy shit, that is hard. And so that combined with Do we have the leaders in our life? Those two things, like if I could just say, well, what is it? It's that. And then there's all kinds of shrapnel that comes with that, right? Like, well, now we've got to talk about strategies and how do I build a business plan and all this stuff. That comes after. If we can't be right here and be surrounded by the right people, man, most people can't even get off the ground because it's a very tough, mentally challenging businesses. We are just vulnerable sacks of flesh walking around this earth, and we're just as sad and depressed or up or down as anybody else. But the difference is that you're not selling a toy or a car or a product. If somebody says, I don't want to buy your car, I don't take offense at that. I'm not the car. Somebody says, I don't want you. Well, you're the car, and they think you are not good enough for what they need. That's a tough thing to grapple with.
How do we actively support agents outside of training?
Well, a lot of the support, like that conversation right there, it starts with just the awareness of that conversation. That's how we support people, speaking honestly to people. I always encounter this, you meet the new agent who's just graduated from the UBC course and, they're geared up and, in their brain, I'm going to go conquer the world and make all the money I want. And they have no idea that the biggest obstacle they're about to face is right here. It's the fear and it's the rejection. So how we support them, number one, is just bring the rude awakening of the awareness to what that is and how that is possibly the biggest demon they're going to face. So it's coming to that understanding. And then, once you come to that understanding, depending on the person and where they're at in life, different people are sometimes more quickly able to engage that and, diagnose that within themselves and address any issues they have internally. And some are able to do it easier than others, depending on, life experience, their path, where they've come from, any previous woundings they have. There isn't one path when it comes to that. But I can tell you, the path everyone must take first is just an acknowledgement of it and an understanding that's number one. And then number two is, the right people around who can help identify these things and draw out maybe the painful things that need to be pulled on in order to bring to the surface what needs to be dealt with. I can't tell you how many times I've encountered agents where, they're struggling with something, like maybe they're in their brain, they're going, well, I can't get past 12 sales a year or 13 sales a year. And the answer is maybe not even real estate related. The answer might be in their mind or in their self-belief or how they're dealing with rejection. You get rejected and then you go into the dumps for 6 weeks, and now you just lost 6 weeks of positive activity because you're licking your wounds over that rejection. These are the types of things that more often than not hold people back. If it was just the strategy for Instagram or writing the right email, worded the right way, we could all get it. But we don't. And the reason we don't is because we're human, and most of the battles we face are human issues. Now, do we need to get to the strategies and, the business plans and all of those other things? Yes. But if we get there and we're not in the right place psychologically and mentally, and we're not prepared to handle the moments of rejection or the moments in time where a client gets pissed at you, rightly or wrongly, because something went sideways, and inside it was totally out of your control, but guess what? You're the object of their anger. We got to know how to handle it. If we can't handle that, that can drive us down into a deep hole where we doubt ourselves, lose productivity. And what does that lead to at the end of the day? Oh, shoot, just another 12 sales again this year. I guess that's all I'll ever be. Not true, but it takes an acknowledgement of that. And then to be with people who know this, who've lived it, who've shed the tears and bled the blood, and understand that there is a path out, and it involves a toughening, a self-awareness, understanding how we each react in these circumstances and how we can protect ourselves mentally and emotionally so we can successfully travel through these crucible moments in our career and not have us drag us into another 4, 6, 8 week cycle where we have lack of productivity.
So owner, agent, therapist.
Owner, agent, therapist. Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of that.
What would you say to someone who feels stuck or alone in the business?
Well, if you're stuck and alone, it's probably because you're dealing with a combination of these two issues, we just highlighted. It could be because you need some inner work done, right? It could be because maybe we're not always having honest conversations with ourselves about who we actually are and how we're traversing this business. But it's a heck of a lot easier to come to the right conclusions if we're surrounded by the right people whose job it is to make sure we're not feeling alone. Now, that can be a great manager or a great owner. It can also be like-minded agents inside the brokerage who you feel like you have shared common interests with, or you share a lot in common with. And sometimes it's not even people inside the brokerage, right? Like some of these issues are deeper personal issues. And if we've got things going on outside in the peripheral of our lives, the people we associate with, the habits we have, what's that saying I like to say? You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Ironically enough, what can oftentimes be holding people back in their careers could have nothing to do with being inside the walls of the brokerage. Now, is that play a big part? Yes, it does. But I have encountered many agents where, they're not able to overcome these obstacles, and they'll look at the brokerage and look at the leadership and go, why is this not working? What are you doing for me? And oftentimes there's something in that individual's life that's holding them back. And we'd like to pretend and think that these things aren't related, but everything is related. Everything is intertwined. And if we've got a bad habit or a bad group of people or old tendencies in our life that, are too painful to address or too hard to address, that can actually be the thing that is holding us back from unlocking, growth in our businesses.
You talk about agents being around like-minded people. What do we do to foster that kind of community or culture?
Well, it's a couple things. It's number one, I would say, there can't be an integrity gap. If people are preaching things, then they better be living it. And so whether or not that is productivity or doing the right things in the business, like the systems and, the business planning and the activities, like if you're getting preached at from somebody who's not actually living it out, that's a path to doom pretty quickly. And it's a big integrity gap, right? Like you got to practice what you preach. And then what comes with that is I would say every workplace has a culture, right? I hate the word culture. It's so overused, but we do develop cultures, and culture is driven from the top. And so if you were to just go and if you could live inside the walls of 10 different businesses, you'll find out pretty quickly over time that the culture of that business takes on the form, generally speaking, of the most influential leaders in the office. And that can be a combination of owners and management and other agents, but those are the people that drive the culture in the office. And so if you've got, if you're feeling alone or trapped, or you're not getting to where you want to be, it's probably related to something internal or something in your immediate sphere of people, or which could be then related to, the people that you're surrounded by. And the other thing, which it sounds old fashioned and, nobody likes to talk about it because, I think everyone wants to think that, technology is going to replace this, but hard work makes up for a lot of other things. And so something that I see in our industry, maybe in other industries as well, is that the willingness to work beyond 50 hours a week or maybe 60 hours a week it's becoming more and more rare. You see it in some of the old guys and older gals who've been around for a long time. Like, this is how they worked before technology and DocuSign and, whatever, everything else that's made our life incredibly convenient. You had to drive around to get initials at night long after you were supposed to be done working for the day. And I mean, I sound old in saying this, but I mean, I remember years in the early 2000s where these things didn't exist. And I mean, it was not unusual for me to work 70, 80 hours a week. It almost sounds like a sin, saying that out loud. But hard work, very, very few people get to new heights without hard work. And so one of the tough questions that, people in our industry have to ask themselves and answer honestly is, how hard am I willing to work and what am I willing to sacrifice? And does that align with the lofty goals that I have? I can tell you from personal experience, if you're, building your career and you want to get to a place where you sell 30, 40, 50 homes a year, you are not going to get there without hard work. You are not going to get there without sacrifice and missing some birthdays or missing some parties or dinners out with friends. And because it takes time to do all of these things. Yes, there's people later on in their career who can do it more efficiently and it looks easy from the outside. I promise you, getting there is not easy. And at the end of the day, working longer than your competition is willing to work will get you places where others cannot get.
Our trademark is we have amazing people. What does that mean to you personally?
Well, we have amazing people means two things. And so I'll start with the staff that work and then get on to the agents. It means first and foremost that everybody we have in the position they're in, they are elite at what they do. Their actual skill set is amongst the best in the industry. But it doesn't stop there. They bring, I like to use this term, reckless abandon. They bring a reckless abandon to what they do every day because they really love their jobs and they believe in the goals and the visions of Little Oak and North Star. And so, yes, they're highly skilled, but then they take that high level of skill and they deliver it in the best way possible because they truly enjoy what they do. So as a result of that, over the years, I can't even remember when we first started adapting that tagline, but it kind of just came organically because, we found ourselves in conversation looking around going, we have amazing people. And then, we dissected that and said, well, this is in fact why we say we have amazing people, because of our standard of hiring and our standard of care and attention to detail is second to none. But then that's great. You can hire great people, but if they don't love what they do, then they don't bring that level of care every day. Our people do bring that level of care. And then our agents feel that on a daily basis, whether it's their interactions with management or staff or technology people or conveyancing, whatever, agents feel that. And then through osmosis, you just can't help. If that's what you encounter every day, then you too bring that to your business in the way you serve and deliver for your clients. So then I look at our agents and I go, it's the same. It's this expectation of being highly skilled within the industry, but then also really truly loving what you do. And then having that flow through into the delivery of services to our clients. So that's how I define, that's a good question, because a lot of people could say it. And, there's maybe even other answers in other companies that could be similar. But for our company, that's what it means.
In today's market, what does growth look like?
That's a great question. Growth is expanding of new relationships that you don't already have, and the further nurturing of the relationships that you do have. That's literally it. And then everything that we talk about, databases and business plans and revenue streams and, what might objective is with videos and client emails. If we don't start with, why are we doing this? We're doing this to gain new relationships and continue to forge the old ones. It's all a waste, because people are going to transact with you 99% of the time because they know, love, and trust you personally, or because someone they know knows, loves, and trusts you. So growth is that. If you're an agent in this business and each day you're not waking up going, did I bring in new relationships that I can cultivate for the future, or did I cultivate relationships that I already have? I mean, yeah, I know there's like taking listings and working on offers and all the things, but outside of that, we're not all selling a house every day. And by the way, even those that are selling a house every day, the reason they're selling a house every day is because they've not lost sight of this most important fact. We have to be growing relationships and cultivating the ones we already have. If we're doing that, we're growing. If we're not, we are not growing. We're going through the motions of some of these things that we get sucked into this industry, whatever, coming up with an Instagram post or posting something that's just listed or just sold, or going to a conference. Like, can these things all be great? Yes, they can be, but only if they lead to the cultivation of new and existing relationships. If they don't, we're just a part of the noise.
What's the first thing you look for when trying to help an agent increase their sales?
Level of self-awareness. So I've said before that, the two biggest challenges to an agent can be what's going on here inside, and then also, the support systems around them. I know that we've got the support systems nailed. Are we perfect? No, we're not perfect. But are we in the elite in the industry? 100%. So what holds us back from being able to get agents to the next level is not the systems that we have, that we're always fine tuning and wanting to repair and change. It's what's the level of self-awareness inside the agent? And then more specifically, is there something that I can suss out or help them suss out in their own life that could be what's holding them back from, making tough decisions and getting to the next level? What happens is if somebody has a bad belief system inside them, then you can deliver all the truth and all the value you want based on experience and what other agents have done. It doesn't matter, because it just lands on a bad operating system. And if the operating system's broken, nothing that you put into it is going to work. So usually that's the first thing I'm looking for. And, we've all got flaws. I mean, I've got flaws, but there's a big difference between a totally dead and broken operating system and one that's operating at 50, 70, 80, 90%. And the better our operating systems are, the more healthy we are here, being able to properly encounter rejection and defeat and overcome fears, the easier place we're going to be in when we encounter the truth and the ideas and the concepts and all those things. You will then be in a place where you can actually implement. Implementation is often not done because the operating system needs tweaking or fixing.
So when you're meeting with an agent that wants to increase their sales, do you often find that there is that versus just adjust your CRM or put out more information?
Well, yes. The short answer is yes, but it's different for everyone. So it's a very different conversation for someone who's never sold a home, or somebody who's been in the industry for 8 years and they've never been able to break through the ceiling of selling 15 homes a year. And it's hard, right? This is not something that society does on mass scale. We don't often look to ourselves and go, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the reason that I can't get to this. I think by the time you get 6, 7, 8, 9 years into the industry, you do have an awareness that is around you. Now, it's very different to say, well, I know there's people around me who have problems, but I don't have a problem. But there's an awareness of it. When you have a brand new agent who's never been in the industry, this is not talked about in, the licensing that goes on. And if that person has never journeyed in years of sales before, then they don't maybe even have an understanding of what rejection is or how life habits can impact productivity when you're selling yourself every day. So yeah, you approach that differently based on the experience of the agent. And then what I'm trying to do with people is see if there is a gap between what their hopes and dreams are and where they're at here or in their life, and also what they're willing to sacrifice. Like, it sounds really great to say, yeah, I want to make $1 million and sell 60 homes a year. Really? Do you? We want to take everyone where they want to go, and we know how to do it. But sometimes what happens in this industry is you get dragged into the common story of the elite, right? Because the elite are all loud. They're all online. They're all preaching their methodology and how they do things. And then, we can easily start to believe, well, this is what I need to do in order to achieve that, when in fact, that might be really destructive for that individual and the way they need to run their business. And maybe some of those ideas and strategies don't fit well with that person's personality. Maybe that person's got some life trauma that they've got to deal with first. They could have fears around something as simple as sitting in front of a camera, right? But if you're told that you can't sell a house unless you figure out how to sit in front of a camera, well, now what? And the fact of the matter is you can sell a house without ever sitting in front of a camera. You can. But if you're not going to sit in front of a camera, then you need to figure out other ways to communicate with people. But this is where you can really get caught in a web and then get to places of feeling alone and lost and defeated. It starts with, this self-realization process of who you are and what you're comfortable with, and then seeking out the types of individuals that can help you in the place where you're at with the things that you're comfortable with.
It's a bit of a new concept for us, but why do you think it's important that we're aligned with a 100% Canadian company?
Oh, that is a great question. Well, if I had answered this question 20 years ago, I would have probably said, well, why? It's an irrelevant question. It doesn't matter. Over time, what I can say from personal experience is that having once operated as a very different company with a very different brand that is American owned and globally operated, there's two kind of hallways we can walk down in that conversation. One of them is not at all to do with the clients. It's just to do with the delivery of services and the value that is supposed to be brought by the brand. And as time has gone by and things have changed, and some of these big international brands have predominantly started to operate out of the US, everything is US driven. From like the products that are created, the decisions that are made at leadership tables, all the ideas, they are American. And maybe there was a time many, many years ago where to be American was the same to be Canadian. Maybe some of the ideas and services and things like that got cultivated, they would have been easily interchangeable. They're not today. We are a very different culture than the US. Decisions that are made within Canada on a leadership level look very different than decisions that are made in New York or Denver or anywhere else like that. And so we found over time, through our own experience, that being affiliated with an American-driven, American philosophical ideology just didn't work anymore. There was a huge disconnect, and I use the terminology integrity gap sometimes. You just can't expect an American company that's broad-based worldwide to care about Canadian consumer needs. Then, practically speaking, when you progress through the last 20 years and see how much technology has overtaken our industry, right? Like when you were just writing paper contracts 25 years ago and there was no websites and no internet and whatever, these things didn't matter. But now, if you're involved with an organization where technology is paramount and everything that's technology based is not built for a Canadian entity, but it's built for an international or an American entity, then that means the practical application of those tools as a Canadian sucks because nothing has your language, from the way they formulate or talk about commissions or closings to how they build the back ends of their systems. It just doesn't work with a Canadian system. And so over time, you feel more and more like a stepchild where nothing's, you're told, well, you're a part of the family. We care about you. Really? Because like none of these things are designed to work for me. They're designed to work for all the other kids in the family that are really a part of your family. And we're just kind of like this afterthought, and we're told that we got to find a way to make it work, because how could you expect us to develop something for, such a small country and, you're such a small piece of the market? Well, yeah, I get it. So we got tired of that conversation. So we don't want to be here anymore. And so to, say, well, then why is it important to be a part of a Canadian company? Well, for all of those reasons, because when you're a part of a Canadian company at Royal LePage, everything they do philosophically, from leadership down to the technology they develop and drive out to the agents, which ultimately makes it back into the consumers. Guess what? It's a one-child family. You're the only kid. There is no other kid. It's the culture's right, the leadership's right, the technology's right. And then of course, in the last little while here, in recent times, I think it's even become more advantageous to be a part of a Canadian owned and operated organization, because the relationship with the US and Canada is not what it once was. And, that'll find a way to repair itself over time. But what's not going to change is leadership making decisions in American cities and technology being developed in American cities. That is not great value from the perspective of a Canadian agent, and certainly from the perspective of a Canadian consumer. And so being aligned with the number one Canadian-based brand is unbelievable.
If someone was on the fence about making a change related to their brokerage, what would you say to them?
The first thing I would do, assuming that we're not already talking, is I would say do an introspective dive into what it is you want to be. And what I mean by that is, like, can you point out agents in the marketplace in different offices or different brands that you go, I like that person? Not necessarily the agent who sells the most or is the loudest. That could be it. But who's somebody that you go like, I think I would enjoy having lunch with that person or having coffee with that person? Take some time to analyze that, and then have the same conversation with yourself about the leadership in different brokerages, whether it be the managing brokers or the ownership. I would start there, and then I would have the conversations. And then as you have those conversations, you'll probably be able to suss out pretty quickly, is there a big difference between, these conversations I'm having with these people and the types of conversations that I'm capable of having within the brokerage that I'm in. And then that's probably the right starting point. And then, you choose to go and have the interviews or the conversations with the people that you feel most aligned with. There's 100 ways to be successful. I shouldn't say that. There's not 100 ways to be successful. There's 100 different styles in which people are successful. There's really only one or two ways, but stylistically it can be done very, very differently. And what you don't want to do is go down a path that's not the right fit for you. And the only way to do that, or to not make that mistake, is to first kind of gain an understanding of, like, who am I and who would I align well with? And then, if it starts to feel good, chances are then maybe that's a right move for you. But you got to have the conversations, and you need like an honest approach to what it is you want to become, and who are the people that you want to emulate the most.
What's one thing you wish every agent knew about our company?
We've done what we're asking you to do. There isn't a message or a sermon or, an ask in our company that has an integrity gap. We never preach something that we do not practice ourselves or have not done or continue to do. And I think that's what separates us from a lot of our competition, is exactly that. And I think in this world, in this noisy world, everybody has training, everybody has mentorship, everybody has the key. Like, it's easy to say, right? And so, we say it just like everyone else does. And hopefully we find better ways to say it than our competition. And hopefully when people meet with us and they have a conversation, they go like, that's different, right? Like, I've never heard it said that way before, or I can hear that that's authentic. But that's the truth. There is no integrity gap. We don't preach something and then just, we expect our agents to do it, and we don't need to do it because I'm not you, and you need to do this because you're the one that needs to sell homes. No, like, fact of the matter is our leadership is still actively selling. We know what it takes. We've built long storied careers. We know everything that's involved in being successful, and we have high expectations of our staff members, or staff members have high expectations of themselves. And we never ask any agent to do something that we ourselves are not willing to do.
All right. And finally, why do you still love what you do?
Well, I really enjoy growth. I like a challenge. I mean, the reality is that there's some days that I don't love what I do, because life is hard and business is hard. What's that?
Can't all be good days.
No, it can't all be good days. But I love what I do because I get the most joy from seeing positive change in people's lives that I know I had or we had a role in. Like, we've got some, I'm not going to name names, but like, we've got some agents in our brokerage right now who started with us fairly early on in our career, and I've seen their journey over the last few years, and you can see where they are today is very different than where they were 2 and 3 years ago. That's exciting to me. And, also a different end of the spectrum of seeing, we've got agents who have been with us for a long time and they've got long journeyed careers. And even them, we've helped them transition at different stages in their career to maybe start working less, right? And transition and bringing on, whether it's a buyer's agent or a team or, someone to assist them where they're at because they're trying to free up some of their time. Those types of things, like when you can see your impact in someone's life and know that their life is better because of what you've helped them do, that's why I love what I do amidst all the chaos and pain that could come with it. That's why I do it. And that's what gets me up every day.
That's it.
Beauty.